What are you recording? Here, record that, motherfucker.
Oh. Yeah. I'm done. How's it going, guys, and welcome back to another Scales and Tails YouTube video. This week we're going to talk about why, in my opinion, the Corrado 200K may be the best swim bait reel out there. So I know what you guys are going to say. You have the Monster Drives, you have the Antares, you have the Calcuttas, the Conquests. There's a whole bunch of different reels out there. The Stees, the Tats, there's a gajillion reels out there. So Adrian, how can you kind of stand up on your soapbox and proclaim that the 200K is quote-unquote the best swim bait reel? And for what I'm going to say is it's going to be from a budget standpoint, from a user-friendly standpoint, and honestly, they're readily available. I have a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, so we're just going to get right into it. So these were always readily available for the 6 or 7 years they were made. I think they debuted in 2017, and then I think they either stopped being in production 2024, maybe tail into 2023. So 6 or 7 years in production, which means there was probably a bunch made and a bunch sold. I mean, locally, I knew so many guys who had 10 or 20 of these Corrado Ks on their boat deck. You had so many gear ratios, you could use it for every single application, and it was really the flagship for Shimano, in my opinion, for those 6 or 7 years. If you were a bass guy, you had a Corrado K. You knew multiple people who had a bunch of Corrado Ks. Priced, I think, what was it, like 200, or was it just under 200 bucks, like $199 brand new. And even at the time, they were still selling secondhand for like $120. And I feel like it's not uncommon to see these on Facebook Marketplace, or other forums for right around that $100 mark. And yes, they're a little old, but it's that type of reel that if you put some grease into, it's just going to keep going. I mean, mine is old and it is used and abused. It's never been cleaned before. It gets greased very, very minimally. We had a Washington swim bait guy on probably about a year ago, and he told us the difference between the Shimanos and the Daiwas. So Daiwas, when you get them, they're kind of geary, they're a little loud, and they get broken into, they get really, really smooth. Shimano's kind of the opposite. They come out of the box super smooth, super quiet, and then after a while, you start getting some real sound out of them, that kind of grimy, gritty feel, and I like that. I like when I can feel when my reel is actually picking up line, when there's drag getting pulled out. Funny story for you guys, when I got one of my new Corrado Ks, I was fishing a Rising Sun, bombed it out there over a flat, and I was reeling it in. And it was so new, and I had been using this reel that's really gritty, got a lot of really mechanical feel to it. I was using this brand new reel, and I wasn't really paying attention, and I did not even think I was picking up line because the reel was so smooth, and it felt like, you know, when you pull drag and you're trying to spin the reel and it's just spinning, that's what it felt like. I was not used to a quote-unquote nice Corrado K. I was used to that really mechanical feel, so that's kind of why I'm a little biased towards the mechanical, gritty feel, because I know it's working, I know what it's doing, and it just kind of, it makes me a little bit more in the moment, I guess you could say. But talking about the budget, like I said, you can find these guys for probably around 110, 120 bucks now. There's a gajillion of them for sale. There's guys moving to, what's that new one, the Corrado M, I think. So guys are selling these, ditching these, moving to the Corrado M. But I feel like this is a timeless classic that you're going to see for sale for a really long time. For 100, 120 bucks, this is a awesome beginner swim bait reel. And to say that you guys probably already have one of these is a good assumption. I mean, any one of these will work, any gear ratio. Obviously, there's some that are a little bit better, some that might not work as good. But if you have the Corrado K, it's going to work. I mean, I'm going to say this, don't behead me. I fished this thing up to like 8 ounces. I fished the 250 on it. I fished some soft baits on it. I fished a lot of soft baits on it. Never had a real issue. It always has done what I asked it to, and I cannot complain about that whatsoever. So if you have one on a frogging rod, you can take it off, put it on a 8-foot swim bait rod, and you're going to have success with it. And for $120, the barrier to entry on these are really, really nice. Plus, it's a proven reel. Like I said, it's been around for 6 or 7 years, and guys love this thing. And I will add on to this, is kind of its own little branch. A lot of guys really want to overkill the swim bait stuff. I was guilty of it myself. When I first got into the swim bait game, you know, I had the Gantrel, I had the Savage Gear browser rod, if you guys are familiar with that. And I had a 300, or no, I had the Lexa Win 400, so I just had a huge power handle on there, big old musky style reel, you know, gigantic swim bait reel, and I was fishing the Gantrel on it, and it worked, you know, don't get me wrong, it worked, but in hindsight, I probably would have been a more efficient angler if I was using a smaller reel for what I was using. at the time, you know, you get really fatigued fishing a really, really big reel, really making that thing work. The power handle is okay for some people, other people don't like it. You know, the power handles are kind of notorious for engaging. If they're at a certain spot when you go to cast, the weight of that reel will click it and your bait will be gone. On top of that, it's fishing like 300 and 400 size reels does have a place in the swim bait world. But for a majority of guys, like guys who are maybe not necessarily the swim bait only anglers who are going to be fishing a drop shot or a wacky rig or whatever else it may be, crankbaits and stuff, the 200 size reel is going to be perfect. You guys more than likely won't be fishing stuff over 4 or 5 ounces most of the time, and the 200K, in my opinion, can really do that. You know, it might feel like it's struggling a little bit, but it's not going to give up on you. I've actually fished the Hinkle trout on the Tranks 200, and I'm pretty sure the Tranks 200 is pretty similar to the 200K. But like I said, I fished a lot of stuff on this, going from the Depths 250 to the K9 and some other big soft baits. This thing, like I said, always has worked, never given me any issues. It is a little bit loud, so if you like the smoother reels, maybe the Curado K isn't necessarily best for you. And I'll say it's really nice from a standpoint as a setup, because you put this on your rod, it's not going to feel overbalanced. If you put a big 3 or 400 size reel on your rod, most times that rod kind of feels a little overpowered, especially if it's full line, you know, you have an aftermarket handle on it, whatever else it may be. It really starts to add up. This guy, you get all the power I think you do out of a 300 size reel, and it's a little bit lighter. Obviously, one downside is it is a 200 size reel, so you might be cautious with the spool size. I've never had a problem with it, and I've bombed out like the ZFG right here, the Metro. I've fished like bigger stuff with this thing, and I can bomb, you know, 80-yard cast out here, and I never feel too worried about it. Another thing that guys are probably maybe a little on the edge about is the drag. I'm gonna be honest, I put my drag down all the way, and you just have to fight the fish. Obviously, if you're reeling and your spool's not spinning, then the fish isn't gonna come in. This doesn't have, you know, some crazy 25 pounds of drag. You're not gonna be able to always burn fish in when you hook them, where some reels you might be able to. But that's okay. You can fight the fish. You can fight the fish if you have a decent rod and a decent reel. Fight the fish. You don't have to burn it in. I mean, yes, you can get it in fast, but you don't have to get it all the way down as tight as you can, and then just grind that fish in and kind of play it a little bit, because I feel like if you're going to do that, you're going to be pulling hooks, you're going to be doing all sorts of stuff, especially if you're fishing braid and a stiff rod. I feel like you're not going to have a great time. And I will say most guys have these. Most guys kind of have them tuned to what they want, so you don't have to worry about learning a new reel, getting the reel out of the package, tuning it or whatever. This reel, like I said, has been around for a while, so guys know their way around it. Parts are abundant for it. There's always all sorts of aftermarket stuff, especially handles. Handles are something that's come a really long way in the last couple of years. This is a Gomex's handle, which obviously is a knockoff of the DRT handles. This was a gift, so I do like it. But again, it's just the Curado K is such a base platform that you can do anything with. Like I said, you can put this on your frog rod or your Texas rig rod and take it off and put it on your swimbait rod and be absolutely okay. If you're starting to fish like really big stuff like the Hinkle trout, Hinkle shad, you know, ghost or something, 200K might not be the best reel for your situation, but for a majority of guys who are just getting into swim baits, who are doing it as kind of a more of a technique and rather a lifestyle, the 200K is going to be the reel for you. And that's to say that there's not other 200 size reels that can get it done. I have a couple other 200 size reels that I really enjoy for swim bait fishing for different applications, but I feel like for majority of the year and majority of my swim baiting quote-unquote career, I've used the Curado K, and I've never been let down by it. I've never felt like losing fish was due to the reel, whether it was drag or some other component failing. It's a solid reel. I've had this one for probably about 5 years now, and this thing is bulletproof. Cleaned it and greased it maybe once, and that is about it. It's been in the sand. I've dropped it in the river when I was fishing. It's been used and abused, and it just keeps on going. So that's why, in my opinion, the 200K may be the best swim bait reel out there. As always, I ask you guys to leave your thoughts and concerns in the comments below. Let me know what your go-to size 200 reel is. 2024 going into 2025, we have so many new options coming out. We have baits coming out. There's so many new Curados. There's so many new Daiwa stuff coming out. Have stuff from a bunch of the I don't want to say lower end, but some of the more mainstream guys like 13 Fishing's coming out with some stuff. Got stuff coming from Dobbins. Like there's all sorts of new kind of guys stepping into the reel manufacturing or the swim bait reel manufacturing side of things. It's interesting to see. It's kind of exciting because, you know, competition breeds innovation. So I'm excited to see what that new Corrado is all about. I haven't gotten my hands on it. I don't even think I've seen one yet in person, but if it's anything like the 200K, then here in the next like 10 years, I might be making a video saying why the Corrado, I think it's the M, I'm pretty sure it's the M, why the Corrado M is the flagship reel for swimbait fishing. Make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube. Make sure you check out the podcast if you don't already. Scales and Tails Podcast, wherever you get your podcast, and Scales and Tails Media on Instagram and Facebook. Make sure you guys follow that if you don't. We appreciate you guys watching. Like I said, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you guys like the video. Make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you guys on the next one.